Keep yourself in the loop of everything football. Listen to Alex and Jeremiah on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello there, I'm Jeremiah.
I am Alex, always and forever here.
Dedicated to college and NFL football. The latest football news on and off the field. NFL draft trade rumors. We've got you covered from the NFL, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything else in between. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
My name is Ben.
And episode 159. Dang, 159. Wow, can't believe it. It is January 20th, 2017, and this is the Friday before Championship Sunday. So, of course, we're going to preview these games in depth, or we're going to try to at least do it in depth today. So we got the Green Bay Packers going to the Georgia Dome to face the Atlanta Falcons, and then we got the Steelers going to Foxborough to face the New England Patriots. Man, I'm real excited for these games.
Definitely, we're in our final four now, a couple games before the Super Bowl. See who gets there. Good storylines. We've really only had, in my eyes, one great playoff game this year, which was the Dallas-Green Bay game last week. The other game's kind of disappointing, so I'm hoping we have some competitive games on Sunday.
Yeah, me too. And the Packers and Cowboys game, it was a classic, and I do agree with you. I think that was the only legitimate playoff game that we have. Every other game was pretty much a blowout. Well, we did have the Steelers and Chiefs, but it was more of a defensive game for you guys that like those kind of games. But man, let's talk about this Green Bay Packers and Atlanta Falcons game first. And man, I think this has the makings of a shootout. I think it's going to be 52-49. It has the makings of that kind of game, but it probably won't happen. I think Atlanta Falcons defense is pretty underrated. I don't think a lot of people give them credit. They do have a really legitimate pass rush with Vic Beasley, who led the league in sacks, by the way, and I think he can possibly become the Defensive Player of the Year, but I think that might go to Khalil Mack of the Raiders. But, both of these teams are coming off winning streaks. The Packers, I believe they have 7. Falcons, I think they have a 4-game winning streak to end the year. Both of these quarterbacks are hot. And Matt Ryan has I think 11 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, as well as Aaron Rodgers, who's only thrown 1 interception his last 8 games. That is very, very crazy. And the Falcons are more of the balanced team, and I just think they've been probably the more underrated team than the Packers, because we've seen what Aaron Rodgers can do. He can just make amazing plays. He just creates a play. I just don't know how he does it. But as far as picking a team to win this game, I'm gonna stick with the hot team, and both of these teams are hot. But I'm sticking it with Aaron Rodgers, and that's nothing against Matt Ryan and the Falcons. It's just that I've seen Aaron Rodgers do this before. Matt Ryan only has 2 playoff wins in his entire career. His second win was last week. This is the last game at the Georgia Dome, and I know that. But I just think the way that Aaron Rodgers is playing, it looks like he's going on a legendary Super Bowl run.
Think about this, okay? The Falcons have literally the edge in every single position except quarterback. No disrespect to Matt Ryan. He's a good quarterback, but he's not what Aaron Rodgers is doing right now. Imagine if the tides were turned. If you put Aaron Rodgers, quarterback of the Falcons, and you put Matt Ryan, quarterback of the Packers, would you be talking about this game like it's going to be a blowout? Seriously. We'd be saying, it'll be 41-20, 38-17, somewhere along those lines, right? Aaron Rodgers is literally carrying this team right now. Injury-depleted wide receivers, Devontae Adams, ankle, probably going to play. Geronimo Allison, hamstring, probably going to play. Jordy Nelson even might even play. Mike McCarthy said in a press conference, if this were the regular season, not one of them would be playing. So how effective can those three be on Sunday? It's a big question mark. You look at the defense. They have safeties playing cornerback. They have a 6th-round pick a few years ago, Darius Gunter, matching up against Des Bryant last week against Dallas. Probably against Julio Jones this week. Although Julio does have a toe injury, has not been practicing, so he might be a little limited. It's still going to be a tough matchup. If you were to put Aaron Rodgers on the Falcons, this game would be a blowout. So he's literally single-handedly carrying this team. Can he do it one more time to get them to the Super Bowl? Honestly, I should be picking Atlanta because they're by far a better team. You mentioned better defense, better offense, the number one scoring offense in the NFL. They average 35 points at home. They're at home. They're in the Georgia Dome, the last game ever in the Georgia Dome. Going to be an emotional moment. Everything is going right for them, except it's Aaron Rodgers. You cannot bet against Aaron Rodgers. I should be picking Atlanta in this game, but I'm going to take Green Bay. I rode with Green Bay against the Giants, and it worked. I rode with Green Bay against Dallas last week, and it worked. So I'm going to stick with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers one more time. But I'm with you, Jeremiah. I think it's going to be a shootout. I don't know about 52-49. I think both teams definitely score in the 30s. I'm going to say 38-34. Remember, this is a rematch of a game earlier in the season, a game that was in Atlanta. The Falcons came out on top 33-32 in that game. Matt Ryan threw a touchdown to Mohamed Sanu in the last seconds of the game to win it for them. So I think it'll be basically the same kind of game. The guy with the ball has to win. I think I trust Aaron Rodgers a little more than Matt Ryan right now, and that's why I'll say they go to Houston.
Yeah, and don't forget, Jordy Nelson might come back for this game too, and that's going to bode well huge. But there's something I also want to point out with this receiving core for the Packers is they're really hurt. And Devontae Adams hasn't been able to practice all week, and he's been really good. And it looks like they only have 2 receivers that are not on the injury report. So that is a little concern. The Falcons are the more balanced team. They have a better running game. I just feel like Aaron Rodgers really shines in these type of moments. And I just want to point out that, the ESPN Stats and Info Twitter accounts, I saw this the other day, that the Packers have won 8 straight games. The Falcons have won 5 straight. So both Rodgers and Ryan have been really stellar during these win streaks. So since both of these teams last lost, and that was a long time from now, Rodgers has completed 69% of his passes. He's thrown 21 touchdowns, 1 interception, and has a 84 total quarterback rating. As for Matt Ryan, he's completed 73% of his passes. He's thrown for 14 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a QBR of 90. So both of these quarterbacks are hot. I think we're in for a classic game. I think this is probably going to be the game that a lot of people are going to tune into. I think people are going to tune into both games. I just think it's that type of marquee matchup. But, man, I think we're going to get a heavyweight fight here in this game. I think it's going to be a heavyweight fight. Kind of like the Cowboys and Packers when we saw both of these teams start fast. One of them started slow, and they just kept trading. They kept going till the very end of the game until someone won. And, Aaron Rodgers just had that clutch moment with 30 seconds to go. But, yeah, I think we agree that we have the Packers in this game. And, honestly, the Falcons are favored, and they should be favored in this game because they're at home. They're the more balanced team in general. But, I just can't bet against Aaron Rodgers. I've seen him done before. Like, I really thought when the divisional game was tied at 31 last Sunday, I really thought the game was going to go to overtime, and I thought the Cowboys were going to pull off a comeback. Aaron Rodgers proved me wrong yet again. He just makes these plays out of nowhere. And for that, I just can't bet against him. He's just always clutch. He thrives in these type of moments. He thrives in these games. I haven't seen any of that with Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan, don't get me wrong, he had a great game against the Seattle Seahawks. But historically, he hasn't performed well in the playoffs. And this isn't the first time that Matt Ryan's been in the NFC Championship. I remember in 2000, and 12, the Falcons were actually hosting the championship game, and they lost to the 49ers. And that was when Colin Kaepernick had his magical season. They were leading big in that game. I think it was like 17-7. I don't remember on top of my head. But they had a double-digit lead, and then the 49ers came back, and the 49ers ended up winning that game to go to the Super Bowl. So I can see something like that happening, but the fact that Matt Ryan hasn't performed well, I haven't seen anything from him before this year. I just have to go with Aaron Rodgers because we've seen it before. He's been here before.
He definitely has. Matt Ryan has experience as well, and I think last week their victory over the Seahawks, where they literally killed him, kind of gave him a lot more momentum. I think Kyle Shanahan's a big influence on him, while that may not be really there much longer. But so I think that's a big influence on him. I think the difference in the game will probably be the team that gets off to the better start, maybe jumps out to a 10-point lead, 13-point lead, 14-point lead, and kind of just holds on from there will be a big difference. I really felt like last week, because Dallas offense started so slow, that's why they lost the game. Because by the end of the game, I think we could probably still be playing this game and Dallas would score every single time against Green Bay. Like, they just literally had no chance in stopping them. So I think the team that maybe jumps out to a better start, gets a little bit of a lead, and kind of hangs on for the end is going to win the game. And that will probably be the difference in my eyes. Atlanta a lot more balance in Green Bay, so it's going to take some Herculean effort from Aaron Rodgers, which he's definitely capable of, and he showed us last week, the first week against the Giants as well, and really every single game through this 8-game winning streak.
Yeah, so I think the good thing about these 4 games, well, not these 4 games, but these 4 teams, they all have really good 4 quarterbacks. And we're actually going to take our first break, and we're going to get into the other championship matchup this Sunday, and that is the Steelers and Patriots. We will break down and preview that game when we get back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, now it's time to talk about the AFC Championship, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the New England Patriots. And man, this is quite a matchup. I think I think this game is a little underrated compared to the Falcons and Packers game. But man, I wouldn't be surprised if this game is also a shootout as well. But you know, the Patriots defense, they don't get enough credit. I think maybe that's because Tom Brady is there. Maybe it's because his offense scores a lot of points. They are I think they're the second highest scoring offense behind Atlanta. I like the Patriots defense, what they have done lately. But Pittsburgh, what Le'Veon Bell has done in this postseason, it's truly amazing. He has over 300 rushing yards in 2 games, in his first 2 playoff games, and I think that's like a playoff record. But I do want to point out that Ben, I'm not sure if you've seen the Patriots schedule, but man, they haven't played a whole lot of, premier quarterbacks. Dating back to week 11, this is the quarterbacks that the Patriots have played. They played Colin Kaepernick, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Jared Goff, Joe Flacco, Trevor Siemian, Bryce Petty, Matt Moore, and Brock Osweiler. That's not really a lot of intimidating quarterbacks. Now they're playing Ben Roethlisberger, who is better practically better than all of them, in my opinion. But the Patriots kind of had, and I don't want to knock them because of the schedule, but if you look at their schedule, the toughest team that they played this entire year was Seattle, and they lost that game. And the next toughest team that they played was Denver, but they won 16-3. And Denver doesn't really have a legitimate quarterback, in my opinion. And then they did play Miami twice, who were a playoff team. But they beat them with Matt Moore and Ryan Tannehill in week 2. But Miami wasn't a good team in the beginning of the year. Remember, they started year 1-4. And then they lost to Buffalo to Tyrod Taylor, but that was maybe because, Tom Brady wasn't there. We can talk on and on about that. But, yeah, outside of the Seahawks, they didn't really play a whole lot of tough competition this year, Ben.
No, not at all. They played the easiest schedule according to opposing teams' records of anyone in the NFL this year. And you touched on their defense kind of being under the radar. They had the number 1 overall scoring defense, but I'm going to go on the other way around. I think it was really overrated because of their schedule. Look at who they're playing. They did not play anyone. The one good quarterback the Patriots played this year was Russell Wilson. They were at home. It was a Sunday night game, and Wilson came in there. He dominated, and they won the game. The one good quarterback they played, they lost. Now they're going in to face the best quarterback they've played all year long in Ben Roethlisberger, who's a living legend. So this kind of bodes well for the Steelers because they're flying under the radar. Everyone's not really talking about them. They do have my eyes are going to have a little bit of a distraction, though, because of the Antonio Brown Facebook Live incident. That'll be a little bit of a distraction. Not much, but maybe some. But personally, I so badly want to pick the Steelers in this game because of the Killer Bees. I think they're going to be the key to this game. But I simply just cannot bet against Brady and Belichick. They're 16-3 postseason at home. The 2 losses to Baltimore, 1 to the Jets. Ben Roethlisberger, he's not been successful against Tom Brady in his career. He's only won 2 games out of 8. And Brady's lit up Pittsburgh Steelers defenses. He's got a touchdown to interception ratio of 7 against the Steelers in the Big Ben era. So I want to pick Pittsburgh so badly, but I simply just can't do it. I can't bet against Brady and Belichick, although I think they are kind of overrated. I really do. But I think the winner of this game wins the Super Bowl, though. I really do. And I'll go with New England.
Okay. There is something I do want to point out, and I think you said it, that Tom Brady has a lot of success versus the Steelers ever since he's been there at Foxborough. I don't think the Steelers have been able to knock off Tom Brady and the Patriots on the road. And I want to take the Patriots. I really do. And I think they have the greatest quarterback right now, maybe of all time, but that's a discussion for a different day. But I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game. I think I am. I just feel like they are more balanced on offense, and Le'Veon Bell is on a heck of a hawk streak right now. I just love watching him run the football, and he's just so patient. I just like watching him. He's just like, he puts on a clinic for running backs. He's on a hot streak right now in the postseason. The Killer Bees have been really good, and I know Ben Roethlisberger didn't really have a good game against the Chiefs. It was pretty average. I think he had 224 passing yards, 1 interception. He didn't throw a touchdown that game. But I do think the fact that they're more balanced on offense, and this is the best quarterback that the Patriots are playing the entire year, I'm going to have to take the Pittsburgh Steelers for that. But I do think this can be another shootout as well. I wouldn't be surprised. It can be a defensive game. I don't know. But this is going to be a close game. And I do think that the Steelers will be in the Super Bowl versus the Packers.
I don't think we're going to have a shootout. I think we're going to have kind of a middle of the road. I'm going to say something along the lines of a 26-23 sort of game, 24-20. So I'll give the edge to New England. I think both defenses will make some stops. I think the key to the game and kind of the X factor to me could be LeGarrette Blount, because you've seen the Patriots kind of shift away from him lately, which he was so good in the regular season. Belichick kind of really has this mindset where he doesn't really care much about that. But I think he could be the difference in this game because we've seen them kind of shift to Dion Lewis more, James White more, so receiving backs coming out of the backfield. But if they could maybe pound the ball, do some hard downhill running with the Garrett Blunt, I think that could be the difference in this game and maybe like propel them forward and give them a little bit of a different element because you know that Brady's going to come out and try and throw the ball, really establish himself early, maybe get like a 1-yard quarterback sneak and then explode with all these spikes and yelling at everyone like he normally does. So, you know, he's going to try and come out and really set up a tempo and establish an offensive mindset. But if they maybe come out and run the ball, that can maybe throw the Steelers for a loop a little bit, something they wouldn't really expect. So for me, that might be a little bit of a difference maker.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, we talked about the Packers and the Falcons being on 5 and 8 game winning streaks. Both of these teams have winning streaks of 7, or 8 if you include the playoffs. That ever since week 11, these teams have been undefeated, both of these teams. So I think we're in for a heck of a weekend, Ben, and I can't wait.
I remember they did play each other, but Landry Jones was the quarterback for the Pittsburgh, so I don't really put much into that game at all.
Yeah, I don't either. I think if Big Ben played in that game, I think we would have been talking about it would have been a whole different story. You never know. The Patriots might have still won, but I think it would have been a different game, and we probably would have had a different conversation if Big Ben played in Week 7. But we're going to take our last and final break here, and we're going to discuss news that have occurred in the world of football in the past 24 hours. And we will let you guys know what's going on in the world of football when we get back to the Going to Me Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, well, welcome back to the Going to Me Concepts Football Podcast, and we got a lot of news to cover that has, been happening in the past 24 hours, and we're going to talk about like 4 stories that have occurred, and most notably, the one that I want to begin with is the Oakland Raiders have filed their paperwork to relocate to Las Vegas. So the Las Vegas Raiders is a possibility, Ben. It's going to happen, and I'm not surprised it's happening anymore. If Chargers can move to L.A., I think anyone can move now. That's just me.
We could have 3 franchise moves in the NFL within a year. We had the Rams, the Chargers, now the Raiders could possibly move. The NFL owners will vote between March 29th and March 26th to find out if they're going to actually move or not. They already have the support of Jerry Jones of the Cowboys and Robert Kraft of the Patriots, so I think it's almost certain that it's going to happen. Those are the 2 most influential owners in the game. There's no way that this is not going to happen, and it totally makes sense. Going to be building a dome stadium, about 65,000 fans, so it's not too many people. You have LA, 2 teams down there. There's how many airports in Southern California that could fly to Vegas? Like LAX, you have Burbank, Ontario, Long Beach, San Diego. You have like a number of airports that are going to Vegas every single day, many times. The flights are like an hour long. You could have a guy's trip, go down there and party, maybe catch a boxing match or MMA match Saturday night, cap it off with the game on Sunday where you're from because your favorite team is in town. It totally makes sense. It's 8 days a year. It's going to happen. You have a good young team. You have stars in Amari Cooper, Derek Carr, and Khalil Mack. It makes total sense.
Yeah, and if any team is going to go to Las Vegas, I think it's going to be the Raiders. I just feel like they fit Las Vegas. They fit that city really well. But, for this to happen, they need 3/4 of the owners' votes in the spring meetings this year. It's 75%. I think it's going to happen, and we're not too far away from watching a Los Angeles Chargers game versus the LA Raiders. not the LA Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders. I confused myself there. So, yeah, we're not far away from watching the LA Chargers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. I never thought I would ever say those words in my entire life. But anyways.
It's going to happen. There's no way that these owners are not going to do it. They're going to get money with the relocation fee as well. It makes total sense. You mentioned the Raiders' image fits in Vegas. Outlaws, Bandits, Raiders. It makes total sense.
Yeah, and I do kind of feel bad for Oakland and the Bay Area. And the Bay Area is it's a market that's really upcoming with a lot of those tech companies in the Silicon Valley. I really do think it's on the come up, but they just couldn't get a stadium, and they play practically the worst sports venue, I think, in North America. That's just my opinion, and I think that's the reason why this is going to get done. They just never got a stadium.
And the Bay Area is okay. They have the Niners still, so they still have a football team. It's okay.
Yeah, but they're not that good. All right, well, let's move on, shall we? Well, the Seahawks could potentially lose a second-round pick for not reporting Richard Sherman's injury. And, of course, Richard Sherman did play with a sprained MCL against the Falcons in the divisional game. But, man, the fact that Pete Carroll he does it again.
He's just literally the head of controversy.
Yeah, he does it again. And they're going to get docked, I believe. It's actually a fifth-round pick, I think. They got docked a fifth-round pick for OTA violations not too long ago. So, a second-rounder, though, that's a starter that they might potentially lose.
Exactly. The NFL is investigating because I guess Richard Sherman had this MCL injury for the majority of the second half of the season, and the Seahawks literally never put it down on the injury report. They would say he would miss practice for non-injury-related issues, which was definitely not the case. And for me, it's like, why? The only benefit I could see out of it is not letting teams know that Richard Sherman has an injury where he's limited, where you might want to target him. Because he didn't have his best year, and I'm sure you can attribute a lot of that to his injury. So if teams know he's injured and banged up, then they might put their best receiver over there, try to exploit that matchup because he's not 100%. So with holding it, the only benefit I could see is making sure no one still targets Richard Sherman because they're afraid of him because of how good of a player he is. So I get that's the only benefit, but I'm not sure if that's the case. But it just doesn't make much sense to me. They already lost the fifth-round pick, but the NFL is investigating this. If they were to lose the second-round pick, they'd get the fifth-round pick back. It's almost like two wrongs are just making a bigger wrong by bumping it up to the second-round pick. So they still could get that fifth-round pick back, I guess, if they get the second-round pick taken away. But you mentioned it, that's a starter. That's someone who's going to contribute right away. Maybe not start right away, but start within the next couple of years. Be a big focal point of your team. And for a team, in my eyes, that has a lot of issues. A lot of issues on the offensive line. The defense, you have Earl Thomas coming off of a serious leg injury.
He might contemplate. He's contemplating retirement right now.
Exactly. So you have holes to fill on the defense as well. You could use more playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. So that's a big loss for me. And Pete Carroll just simply does it again.
He does it again. And I just want to point out, Richard Sherman has not missed an NFL game in his entire career. So this injury is significant because of that. And I just don't. I think a competitor's edge was the reason why that they didn't report it. But still, man, that's a starter.
You have to report it.
You have to report it.
That's the rules.
Yeah. Well, we got a couple of linebackers that we're going to talk about, sticking with the defensive theme here. The Cleveland Browns are close to signing Jamie Collins. And as you remember, Jamie Collins was traded to the Browns from the New England Patriots for a third-round compensatory pick. So I didn't really think that Jamie Collins was going to sign, but it would keep Collins out the free agent market. And the Cleveland Browns, they actually lost a lot of starters on defense on the first day of free agency last year. So this was a very important thing to get done. They think he can be an anchor for that defense in the future. And I think it's a step in the right direction to build a defense because Lord knows this team needs a defense. So this offseason priority for the Browns is to keep retaining key players, and Jamie Collins is the first step of that. But I'm surprised that he's going to stay there, or he's even thinking about it. I agree with that. Jamie Collins was going to test the free agent market and not wanting to play in Cleveland.
I mean, they're definitely throwing some guaranteed money at him. We're not sure exactly what it is, but perhaps he thinks it's going to be more money in Cleveland than where he can get somewhere else. The Patriots did get rid of him because he was a little bit of a distraction in their organization. Bill Belichick's definitely a smart guy who's well respected around the league. So I'm sure maybe some other GMs are saying if Belichick got rid of him, then why would we want to bring him in? There's definitely something wrong with him. So we'll just let Cleveland keep him. He's a good player, but I'm sure there's maybe some things we're not known, some things we don't know about as to why he might not want to test the free agency market and maybe kind of get the door slammed in his face. So he's just accepting it, staying in Cleveland, and getting probably more money than he would otherwise.
Yeah, and in 8 starts with the Browns, Jamie Collins finished third on the team in tackles with 69. He also had 2 sacks and 1 forced fumble. So once Collins is signed, I think the Browns are going to focus on re-signing Terrell Pryor, who really broke out as a receiver this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if Terrell Pryor tests the free agent markets. But for the final story of the day, and we actually have unfortunate news, but the leading tackle for the Ravens, linebacker Zach Orr, who is 24, is announcing his retirement today. And Zach Orr, he was a monster this year. He's a beast. You know, he led the team with 132 combined tackles. His single season total was the team's third highest in the past decade behind Ray Lewis, who had 139 in 2010 and 134 in 2009. So that's saying a lot. So he was looked at to maybe perhaps become an anchor for his defense in the future. And he was an undrafted free agent out of North Texas. And he is the 13th NFL player since the start of the 2015 calendar year to retire at age 25 or younger. So it still continues the trend of players retiring early. And I remember, I'm not surprised though, because, you know, Earl did have a neck stinger against the Pittsburgh Steelers on December 25th, so he missed only 1 game. But, you know, he found out that there is a condition after having an MRI, and he found that it was shocking. He said it was shocking, and he said his hands were tied about his decision to retire, but he didn't want to risk his future, he didn't want to risk his health, so I can see why, and he said he couldn't pass a physical. So, and I know that this is hard for anyone to walk away from a game at such a young age, but I could very understand why, because of injuries, and he has health concerns. And that's something I actually do agree with. You have to think about your health, you know, first.
We've seen guys have to do this before. I think about David Wilson with the Giants, a running back a few years back, who had an okay start to his career, kind of got off to a bad start, but then a little turned it around, but then he had to retire because of a neck injury. Really emotional. It's definitely unfortunate, especially at a young age, just 24, his 3rd year in the league. One of the best players on a really good defense in Baltimore. Pair him along with C.J. Mosley, one of the best young inside linebacker combos in the league. But, I mean, it's unfortunate. It's sad news, but it's part of the game. Injuries are more prevalent in football than any other sport, and you have to really just put your health first in that regard. So I hopefully he can do something else with the game, maybe broadcasting, coaching, something on the sidelines, but it's unfortunate for Orr.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, and, you know, he suffered a neck and spine condition, and those are nothing to play with. But, yeah, it's very unfortunate. I wish him all the best in the future. But, Ben, it looks like we are done for today. It was a great show. Really great show. And I just got to say, man, are you going to watch the games this weekend? What do you got planned for this weekend before we get out of here?
I'll be checking up on them. Won't be able to watch them through in every single play, but I'll be checking up on them. I'll always be ready. I mean, my Packers are playing, so I'm hopeful. It can be a tough matchup. I think they match up better with Dallas last week than they do with Atlanta this week, honestly. So, and then obviously you have the Steelers and the Patriots, 2 legendary quarterbacks. It's going to be a fun weekend. Yeah.
So it's going to be a fun Sunday, guys. I think we're in for some good football. I say enjoy it. You know, go on the couch, order a greasy pizza, open up a 6-pack. There you go. You have it made right there. But I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to the Going to Meet Concepts Football Podcast. As always, guys, I'm Jeremiah.
My name is Ben.
And I will be back on Monday, and I will recap Championship Sunday. Yes, I am expecting to have a very action-packed show. But as always, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. You guys have a great weekend and enjoy the games.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.